We've been talking about the idea of reopening and so many small businesses that I think ideally would like to do it. But there is this question of demand and whether it's really going to happen and what happens. And so before we even get into the loan program and everything else that's happening right now, I'm curious what you think and what you're hearing is happening from your constituents.
Well, there's no question that all businesses, but particularly small businesses, are having a real challenge. Many are not able to open. They're having difficulty on so many different fronts. The Paycheck Protection Program helps for 8 weeks, but what happens after 8 weeks? So clearly we are looking at how we can help those that are in greatest need be able to stay viable. Small businesses are the growth engine of America. That's where job creation takes place. That's where innovation takes place. And we're going to have to give special attention, we already have, to help our small businesses.
Do you think there's going to be a big second round of stimulus? You talk to a lot of these small business owners and they say, look, maybe we can get through these 8 weeks. Maybe we can get through a little bit longer. But at some point, we're going to need help if we're going to try to stay open, because in some of the cases, social distancing requirements are going to require them to only allow a certain number of people in. Then on the other side, you have this demand issue, which is there are going to be some people who just don't go out and spend money the way they used to.
Oh, clearly, the first efforts on stimulus was to try to get money out as quickly as possible. And I think we were successful in doing that with the IRS checks and with the PPP program, with the unemployment insurance. We did get money out. The second round, this next round, I think we're going to try to be much more targeted, particularly for small businesses. So those who have had significant revenue losses, the smaller of the small businesses, to try to target the program to the traditionally underserved communities. That needs to be our focus. And I do think there's bipartisan support for more help, but we want to see it targeted.
You know, one of the things you hear from small businesses is that the goalposts throughout this process have changed. Early on, when the program was first developed and first announced, the administration, Congress said, we're just trying to throw money at the problem. If you're a small business, ask for the money, go get it. We want you to have access to the money. A week later, we heard of small businesses, but small businesses that might have had some money in the bank get named and shamed. And all of a sudden, there was a question mark about, should you give the money back? How are they going to look at this later? What's going to happen? In some cases, there were clearly egregious examples of people getting access to the money. But there are other smaller businesses, and I've talked to them, who are completely off the radar, who you wouldn't necessarily know, who got the money, who think they actually need it, but they're a little anxious now about even using it.
Well, you're correct in that we wanted to get the money out quickly. So we made it easy for the banks to do the underwriting. It was 100% guaranteed by the federal government. But we did put a requirement on the small businesses to make a self-certification of need. So there was a requirement that you've been adversely impacted by COVID-19 and you needed some help. So if you falsified that certification, that's not right. And I think that's what Secretary Mnuchin's talking about, particularly with the larger of the small businesses. So there was responsibility on behalf of the borrower, but we wanted the money to get out quickly.
Right. Do you blame the banks at all in terms of how this money got out?
Oh, certainly. And initially, the banks were showing favoritism towards their priority customers. So the larger of the small businesses were able to get loans, whereas the underserved communities, particularly those that underbank, were not able to get the loans in a prompt manner. Now, we did correct that on the second tranche of funds to allocate a certain amount of funds to the smaller financial institutions and those that are mission driven. But at least initially, yes, the banks showed little willingness to try to reach out to the small businesses in greatest need.
And then my final question for you is, and we're going to talk to Dr. Scott Gottlieb in just a moment, but with 2,000 deaths a day still taking place and hospitalizations, especially if you take New York and the tri-state area out of the picture, continuing to go up. This is not just cases as a result of more testing, but actual hospitalizations going up. Is this a new normal that you imagine the U.S. is going to have to live with? Are the steps that we've taken thus far not working in terms of social distancing and in terms of the stay-at-home orders?
I think we have to follow the public health experts' recommendations. We do believe that there will be a significant slowing down of the serious cases. We are identifying more people because we're doing more tests. We hope that the spreading is slowing down considerably, and we hope we can get it under control. But clearly, until we have effective therapeutics and we have a vaccine, there's going to be a lot of anxiousness out in the public about this disease still being here and still very deadly.
And, Senator, before I go, we had Robert Crandall on earlier talking about the airline industry. He's, of course, a big former airline industry CEO. And he said airlines should be regulated like utilities. He said, at this point, given that we've decided that we are insuring these companies as a country, we need to rethink how these companies are funded and what the role of the U.S. government is in them. How do you feel about that?
I think in the United States, we're fortunate that we do have a significant number of airlines. The competition is good. We can get reasonably priced tickets usually. I like the idea that they're privately held. I do think they have to work under a government regulation as they do today, but I prefer them to remain pretty much private entities.